So our next session, we're equally lucky to have Kirstin Garriss with us today. When the networks or even C-SPAN call to feature your work on their broadcast, you want to be at your best. And I know that some of you work in broadcast or have worked in broadcast. This, I hope, will help you sharpen those skills. But Kirstin can show you how. She is an award-winning political journalist based in DC with experience in both local and national newsrooms. More recently, she is the creator and host of Here's the Deal with KG, and I recommend that highly. It's a Substack and TikTok series where she breaks down major national headlines into smart, engaging explainers that resonate with audiences across various platforms. Kirstin has served as a Washington correspondent for Cox Media Group, covering the White House, Congress, the Supreme Court, and national politics for over a dozen local TV and radio stations nationwide. Most importantly, she is a Paul Miller alum who is always willing to reach back and share her expertise. Please welcome.
Hey, thank you again, Kevin. Hey, everybody. I know a couple of people, so I recognize a couple of faces. But how's everybody doing? Feeling good? Okay, last time I did this after lunch, so I had to get everybody to stretch out. So you guys, I get you before lunch, so yes, very excited about that. But let me just poll the room. How many people have done TV hits in a studio? Okay, a few. How many have had to do TV hits at home or on the road via Zoom? All right, yep. Very different experience, right? Well, and how many people have done zero, but want to? Okay, good. It's a good mix. I like to see where we're going with this. Hopefully this will help those who have been in studio improve your studio hits. Those who haven't yet, get you landing one. And those who are on Zoom, make the Zooms look better, but also get you in studio because obviously it looks very different when you're at home. So a few things I want to focus on. A big thing is your background. How are you setting up when you're doing these Zoom live shots? Your setup and yes, your look. I know it sounds superficial, but TV, we're superficial girlies. So that is the name of the game, and it's something you have to keep in mind. So it sounds obvious, but when you're at home creating a Zoom room or a place where you do these Zooms, it needs to be quiet. People live with roommates, I get it. We have a lot of stuff going on, but find a quiet place because anything that is causing noise or extra stuff is going to distract you or it could mess up the shot. Another thing to think about, distractions. Unintended distractions, things like artwork, things on your bookshelf. While it may look cool in person, on TV, not so much. And then lastly, always try to remember where your windows are. Now, if you're doing an early morning hit at 5 a.m., this doesn't quite apply. But you may be on the road somewhere else, different time zone. Think about that and try to apply these same tips as you're in the field. I know a lot of times there'll be breaking news, you're on the ground somewhere. Last year, this was more relevant with the campaign trail, but 2026 is coming up, so same concepts. Now, I always how many people know they'll rate my Skype room on Twitter, X? Okay, yes. That account, honestly, goals. If you want to look at good and bad examples, please look at that. But these are just some screenshots, and I just want people to see because, again, everyone's different. I'm different. The bookshelf, my favorite backdrop. Super easy, something everyone has in their home in some way, shape, or form. And then also framing. So this is something where you're by yourself. You have to think about what is the camera going to see on their end, especially if you're, on a panel in a little box. I mean, that's all it is. You're in a little box. So you're trying to make sure you stand out in those areas. So these are some good examples. I love this one because to me, this is an example of when you're on the road. If you're in the hotel room, you think about it. Hotels, you can't really change how they're set up. You have no control over the decor. You didn't pick the hotel. So these are things to think about as you are traveling and if you can, using plants and whatnot. However, like I said, there's some bad. Things to avoid. My favorite one to talk about, tiger eyes. Again, I'm sure that looks really cool in person. I promise you. I would love to tour his house and be like, bro, where did you get these from? On TV, I'm not really, I don't know what's happening, but this is all I'm looking at. And I don't want that to happen to you because, again, you're up and coming. You're trying to get these hits and it's similar to Project Runaway. One day you're in, one day you're out. You want to get a call back. I want you guys to get the hits and also we want you to get you from in the Zoom room to in the studio. And stuff like this, people remember that. So I want you to avoid it. Even something like this, the chair. Her shot otherwise isn't too bad, but this chair, it's framing her not in the best way. So think about that. And this is an example of windows I wanted to point out to you. While windows give you a lot of great light, you want to face the window, not have it behind you. So for TV, I know Karina's Spectrum News, so you understand windows, all that stuff. A lot of folks who are in print, you never thought about where windows are. That's our business in TV. We always think about that. The biggest no-no, a white wall. Please, please. For the love of everything, never use a white wall. So something like this, try to avoid, honestly, both of these backgrounds at all costs. So that's why if you are in a hotel room, I'm thinking about, again, you're traveling, you're on the road, try to frame your camera any way you can. Even if it's possible, go to if they have kind of the atrium or some kind of like quiet place in the lobby, just avoid a white wall as much as possible because it drowns you out. We never want that. And you're not going to have proper lighting to make it even pop. But even with a good camera, white walls are just horrible. So when I was a TV reporter, we avoided interviewing people on a blank wall because it just looks horrible. Another thing I wanted to bring up that one of my friends reminded me I didn't talk about last year, headphones. For those who've done the home live shots, what have you used? AirPods, headphones, what did you use as your IFB if you needed one? AirPods? Okay, keep that up. That looks a lot better. While this doesn't look, bad, obviously Dasha still has a great shot, but, for some people that wire, that cord can be distracting. And literally with TV, you're trying to cut out every single distraction possible. Things will happen, but how many things can you avoid? How many things can you kind of plan around to make sure that doesn't pop up in your shot? So at all costs, I always tell people, AirPods, if you do have to use a wired one, actually hide it behind your ear and hide the wire behind your shirt or dress, whatever you're wearing. And also feel free to ask questions as I'm going. Things pop up. I want it to be helpful. If there are things that I haven't talked about, also stop me as well. Or tips that you have found that helps. So I want us to be interactive. So feel free to chime in. Lighting. This is your best friend. I'm trying to tell y'all. I have a couple of friends, some of my fellow Paul Millers from 2023. One of them did a live shot, 5 a.m., just drowned out because there was no extra lighting on her face. And I told her to the side, I was like, girl, I love this. I'm glad you're on CNN, but no. So these things are super cheap. See if your job will expensive. If not, everything's less than $20. I get it, we're on a reporter salary. This one clips onto your phone. I use this every day for my TikToks. Works great. So you don't have to invest in anything too crazy, but having just an extra light, especially for those early morning or late live shots, this changes the game. And you can pack it with you. Like these two, you can pack with you on the road. So something to keep in mind. Now, I'm getting into wardrobe. I did ask, Kevin to tell y'all to wear what you might wear on TV just to get a vibe of, what are people working with? I see some black, not a bad thing, but black is not always your best friend on TV. Again, especially by yourself at home. I would add a pop of color. So I would add a blazer to your look. I know I love the yellow in the back here. So if you wear, again, black, try to have a bright color that will make it pop. For women, I want us to stick with these bright colors. It just, listen, we already have a gorgeous face. We already have the hair going. Bright colors make you stand out. I love your blazer in the back. What's your name? Mia, love that. Teal, this is a great look because it pops. The white is a great accent. So think about that as you're, picking out pieces. You don't have to go overboard. Again, we're on a TV, we're on a reporter budget, but a couple of statement blazers will save your life. Also limited accessories. I know I'm more decked out now. This is the post TV life. I'm wearing more rings and stuff, but keep it kind of try to minimize too many things that could be a distraction. For men, you thought you might have been left out. Oh no, you get the fashion tips too. Again, most of you guys, actually, I love what you're looking. Again, love the black, but maybe I might do a different color just to make it pop a little bit more. But blues and grays are your best friend. Black might look good in the studio because the studio is using more colors and whatnot. But again, at home, we're trying to bring you forward. So a gray suit would pop at home. So things to think about as well. Now, makeup. It sounds crazy, but again, TV, are a little superficial. And it's for guys and girls. Guys, you're not left out either. Now, I will say all these makeup tips I'm sharing, these are things you can find at drugstores, Walgreens, CVS, because again, you may be on the road, get a call. Hey, CNN wants you on this story that you're on in Iowa. Okay, bet. Go to CVS and look for these things. Now, for me, these are very small things that will just help because on TV, you want to look as matte as possible. So if you don't have a good foundation, get a small one that you like. Men, even translucent setting powder, that can help kind of erase any creases you have on TV. Because again, what people don't realize, you're on camera, but then your face is like seen through, it has to go through the camera, it has to go through the lens. Your face is getting processed in so many different ways. That's why we want to have like makeup to make your features stand out after it goes through all this processing things. See, you can't talk today, online. And some of the things I always tell people, really simple. Makeup on the forehead, nose, and chin, just places where we all shine the most, and then even a little bit of bronzer. Now, if you want to get fancy and do, eyelashes, all that stuff, love it, not a requirement. But some things that do help, a little mascara, filling in your eyebrows. Men, using an eyebrow pencil to fill in patches in your, your beard and whatnot. Again, everyone gets the makeup tips. No one is left out here. But these are things to consider. And as you buy your makeup, buy travel sizes. Makeup is a chemical. It expires. It gets bad. So don't spend all this money on like the big sizes of this and that. Don't have people saying, Kirstin told me to buy this. I did not. Travel sizes, so if they expire, throw it away, try again. I love going to places like Sephora, Ulta. Someone there can help you out. So think about that. In TV, we have like the go bag where we have everything we need in a bag. So that's why I tell people, get a few things for your makeup go bag in that way. And tools for your lips. Super simple. Again, you don't want anything super shiny. I know we love our lip gloss for the ladies. We don't want your lips to be a distraction because there's like too much gloss going on. Something simple as like chapstick, even a tinted chapstick is all you need. So, but again, we want every part of your face to pop in some way. Now, if you want more, one of my good friends, she's actually an anchor here, WJLA locally, Channel 7. She is a makeup whiz, Jasmine Styles, and that's her actual real name is Styles. I was like, perfect. But she does makeup consultations on the side. So this is something you're like, hey, I want to invest more in this. She is someone you can talk to. Please mention this presentation. So she is taking now freelance clients, but that is if you want to go deep into like makeup. But for now, going to like, again, an Ulta, Sephora and just saying, hey, can you match me for this foundation? Will be well worth it. And when you go into the studio, ask them what they're using on your face. That can help you to match what you're looking for. Any questions so far? How are we doing? Okay. I don't bite. Y'all can ask questions.
So
Yes.
Does that like block you out or like reflect the lighting?
It depends on where you are. So like if you have like a darker background, white can work. I like, again, some kind of pop of color. White color shirt definitely won't look bad on TV, but make sure you check your lighting, and it depends on the timing as well. So early in the morning, the white may reflect more, but during the day, it will like balance out. So it is with TV, timing and lighting vary based on also where you are. But if you can use natural lighting at any point, flipping your camera or your laptop, whatever you're using, natural light will always be the best light. So try to use that before artificial. Now, for those who have landed those in studio, TV hits, how did that work? Did you pitch them? Is there someone at your job pitching you? Just throw out both? Okay. How many people have their job pitching you? Okay. And how many have had to pitch themselves? Stalk everyone on LinkedIn. That is news gathering, okay? That is, but no, that is where to go, because I've talked to a couple of bookers and they have told me, like, we want to hear from you. They want to hear from reporters. They want to get fresh voices on their TVs, but they need to hear from you. Something to consider, shoot for the morning shows, the early morning shows. I know 5 a.m. is early to be on TV, which means a 3 a.m. call time, but when it's early TV, it's fewer eyes on the network. So they're more open to newer voices, people who may have not done TV hits before. Also less pressure because, again, you might be able to be one-on-one with an anchor versus on a panel. I would also push to be one-on-one first, if you can, because it's tough to have your first TV hit be alongside 200 people. And usually they're people who've been on that panel before, so you're trying to fight to get an answer in. So try to push for opportunities that can give you a leg up to practice. Radio is a great one. So try to pitch yourself to the local radio stations or the TV or the radio roundups, because with radio, you can just focus on the content. You can focus on what are you trying to say, the bullet points versus all the other things that I mentioned, like makeup, hair, all that stuff. Also, looking at gigs that definitely don't pay. Like C-SPAN is never going to pay y'all. But it's a great opportunity because there's no expectation of like, I'm doing this to try to become a paid contributor. Nope. C-SPAN's like, we are the public media, okay? Local TV is another one. DC is a great local TV market, and I think this year in particular, even local stations are talking about what is happening at the federal government because it's affecting DC directly. I mean, the DC crime emergency is a great example of how federal is affecting local, and people may want that extra analysis. So pitching yourself as an expert for a local TV hit is also a great experience as well, because it's far less eyes on Channel 4 here locally than CNN. So something to consider there. Now, when you book the gig, you've done it, we're like, let's go. Try to always ask for questions, topics, so you can prepare accurately. Now, for those who have gone in studio or been booked as well, how did that work? Did they send you topics in advance? Did you pitch yourself and say, hey, here's my story? Kind of shout out your experiences. Also, before your hit, this is uncomfortable, record yourself answering questions based on those topics, especially if you've never done it before. If this is your first TV hit ever, do this exercise. It is awkward. Not even gonna hold you, it is awkward, but it helps you figure out, one, how long does it take you to answer a question? For a lot of folks who are in the print and digital space, you guys get to write for days and days and days. In TV, seconds. We're quick. So I think it helps for you to see, oh, it took me 5 minutes to answer this question. You're not gonna have 5 minutes to answer one question. So see what that looks like. Also, look at your facial expressions. I have expressive eyebrows. I'm already I sometimes will scrunch up my eyebrows to make a point. I'm a hands talker. I know this, but I also know where to keep them if I'm on TV. But these are things I had to learn myself was, what are my things? Another one, excessive. I say excessive because to me it's natural to say things like, or that's natural. But you don't want every word to be, that's when someone's gonna be, ooh, girl, I don't know, if we're gonna have you back. So get a sense of what are words that you lean on, and it doesn't have to be those. It might be something else. You may be a basically or an essentially, those are crutch words if you use them too often. So always be conversational, but think about words that you maybe use a little too often, and recording yourself helps you do all that. Now, again, who's print? Let me just get a print, digital. Okay, this is for y'all. With love, one thought, one breath, one sentence. It's and not a run-on sentence, okay? Because I see the little commas and the ellipses. Y'all, okay? I literally just got into the writing space. Y'all stay writing these long sentences, okay? Wrap it up. But no, for TV, just one sentence, one thought, breathe. One sentence, one thought, breathe. Because also, if you try to say a run-on sentence, you're going to sound like this, and you're going to run out of breath on TV, and they will not call you back. So we want them to call you back. That's always a thing. So one sentence, one sentence, one thought, one breath. So kind of like one band, one sound. Y'all remember that movie? Or maybe some of you may not. Okay, millennial moment. But so once you're in the studio, again, we made it through the Zoom live shots. We're in here. We're in studio. Take a moment, get centered. Also checking the producer. Make sure the topics haven't really changed too much. Check your little notes, whatever, on your phone, if you brought a notepad. Also, if there are other guests you're gonna be on set with, try to get to know them so okay, this is so-and-so at this outlet or whatever the case may be. And if you do get a chance to meet the host or anchor ahead of time, talk to them, make sure they know who you are, and even get a sense of what are their social cues. If it is a panel, hey, will look to you or tap on my notebook. I don't know. But it sometimes helps to get a sense of what am I getting into, because it is tough to get your voice in there when you're talking with 3 other people. This is for the women in the room. When I did these different roundups in Charlotte, that was part of my news career path. I was always the only woman on a panel full of men. And the host was a man too. So I'm always like, hello, I have a point. But I had to kind of get a rapport with the host to know okay, he's gonna look to Dan a few times, and I would say, okay, yes, I have a point on X, Y, and Z. But sometimes you have to get a sense of how the host rolls for those cues. Now, for those who have gone in studio, what has that experience been like for you? What have you, is there any interaction before they hit? And when you are at home, again, it's weird because you're looking at, this is you at home. It's weird. It's okay. Take some breaths. It's cool. Look into the camera, do your thing. Now, last year when we did this presentation, a few folks told me, hey, what happens when I can't hear the other person and you're at home? Keep talking. Keep talking. The producer will dip out if they've lost your feed or something happened on their end, but don't stop talking. Because if they do still have you up and you stop talking, it's dead air. We never want dead air. So always keep talking when you're at home. It is weird. Someone will call you and say, hey, we lost your feed. Cool. But always keep going. If you have a thought you're trying to finish, just finish the thought, toss it back to the person, and act like nothing happened, even if, again, you can hear in your ear something doesn't sound right. So that's always something. Keep going. Obviously in studio, you can see social cues and all that stuff. So very different. So that kind of leads me into during the hit, some things will come up. So I've had this asked before. What happens if I'm asked a question and I don't know the answer? Pivot. Do not try to wing it. When we're nervous, we're trying to fill air, we say things that may not be correct. So always pivot to what you do know, but in a way that's still conversational and also shows you still have authority. So try to avoid saying, I don't know blank on TV. Instead, I'm not familiar, but I do know this, that, and the other. I'm not an expert on this. However, I know this, that, and the other. So always pivot, pivot, pivot. Something else that happens, if you're brought in as an expert, I know last year, one of the Paul Miller Fellows, she did a lot of coverage on overdoses and kind of just drugs and medicine, things of that nature. Overdose deaths are not updated as regular as other things. And so she said one time she was doing a TV hit and the anchor got the information incorrect. She was like, I didn't correct in the moment because it was what do I do? I was like, there's a way to do it professionally where if you are covering something like a very niche topic and you are the expert, you're brought in as the expert, you can say, hey, thank you so-and-so. However, I want to correct you. The number is actually X, Y, and Z, and this is why. These things get updated last minute. I just got the new numbers today, and now you sound even more like an expert and authority in what you're talking about. So if that happens, there's a way to correct in the moment that's still professional, because you don't want the anchor to look like they're unprepared. Just kind of say, hey, no worries, I got the new numbers for you. I brought them here for the show. So things like that. Now, discussion time. Any questions, any things you want to know more about, any experiences you've had that are how would I handle this? Or I want to make sure you guys get what you need for your different hits.
My name is Sophie Hills. I write for the Christian Science Monitor. Mm-hmm. And I've done just radio so far, or radio or podcasts. And I'm just curious if you have any advice on balancing being conversational with the anchor or the host, and also not. I've often run into the host will kind of, in their long lead up to a question, they'll be making a lot of very editorial statements about something going on politically, and or sort of lamenting something, which as a reporter you don't really want to do in a public setting, but how to balance acknowledging what they said and being conversational and not sounding removed from the conversation, but still maintaining some kind of neutrality, I guess.
No, for sure, because some hosts, we all know certain networks have a little slant one way or the other. I always try to say balance it with, that is one opinion that's out there. This is what I've been told on the ground, or here's information that I've reported about. Always try to bring it back to your reporting and show that if you're talking about an opinion, it's opinion you've reported on. Again, I use the campaign as a good example, but again, 2026 is tomorrow, so great lead up. I've been on the trail. People have told me X. So that's a way I feel like you can stay neutral, but you're acknowledging the opinion, or you can say, yes, I've, on social media, I've also seen that this is the opinion that people on social media have talked about, but in my reporting, X, Y, and Z. Always try to bring it back to your reporting and what you have reported on, either experts you've talked to, people on the ground you've talked to, and even do it in a way that tells a story. I think, again, the DC crime emergency is a great example, because I think all of us here have probably covered this in some way, shape, or form. You've talked to a lot of people, a lot of real people, when normally we're talking to, politicians and whatnot. And you can then say, hey, I talked to this one resident from Washington, D.C., native Washingtonian, lived here all their life, kind of build a story around there. And, that's how you can still stay conversational, because that's like having a conversation with your friend. Hey, look at this story I just covered. But always try to make sure you're using words that say, I reported, this is what people have told me. People told me this. That's a great phrase to use, where it shows, hey, I'm still being conversational, but also the information came from here. It's not my opinion. It's those of people I interviewed. But that is always tough, because you kind of want to walk the line of I'm the reporter, not a pundit. So I think making that clear that or even say as a reporter, this is what people have told me. As a journalist, this is what people have told me when covering this situation. And I saw up front, yes, do you, and then up here.
Hi, my name is Michael. I'm with CNN. How do we feel about accents? If you have one, should you try to neutralize it or?
That is a tough one. In local news, they would say neutralize it. Like I think it's like Midwest is the accent. I'm from the South, and I feel like I don't have an accent. But when I say like the South, sometimes it comes out or y'all. It's like it's a rap. But I would say make sure. I mean, this is whether you have an accent or not. Enunciation is what you need to do in TV. Enunciate, just regardless of where you're from. I would say make sure you. And it's tough because TV. This is where TV gets very subjective. Someone may say, we love this. Someone else will say they don't. It's also the same thing about your look. Like for the longest time, my curly hair was like, this is unprofessional. How dare you come to TV with like curly hair? Like for real, that was like, I was in J school and people told me I had to straighten my hair to be on TV. Like I would not get a job. So TV has evolved a lot since then, but it's still some subjective, parts to it. I would say with the accent, make sure you are as confident as possible, like in whatever, in terms of whatever you're talking about, but also that it is understandable to folks who may not be able to recognize your accent. It's one of those things you're trying to address a problem that may not exist, but also so many people are watching, the news. So that's a hard one. I still say lean in because I think a lot has changed since like the old tropes of like what TV should or shouldn't be. And honestly, I feel like TikTok and stuff has helped with that we're seeing different voices more often. So to me, it's get in the door, see how it goes. Like I think your accent in Nevada is beautiful. So like if you're not doing TV hits, please do. Just FYI. And then you up front here.
Hi, Audrey
Yeah.
with Defense One. I cover the Pentagon. I haven't really done anything live. I've done one
Yeah.
radio hit where they invited me to talk about Golden Dome, which is this next gen missile defense shield thingy that Trump is building. And I practice so much. Like I practice my answers. I practice talking about it because it's so much easier for me to write and like organize my thoughts that way.
Yeah.
But as soon as we got live, like everything from my mind just like disappeared, even though I know this stuff. So
I get it.
but I also just don't have that much practice doing it. So does it really just come down to like saying it over again, or like do you have any tips on how to like not have that just fear and like everything escaped my mind in that moment and I don't even know what happened. So does it just come down to like repeating it, or do you have any tips?
Practice, but also with radio hits, put notes. You can have notes. Like the beautiful thing about radio and why I want people to like try radio first, you can still have notes with you. No one sees that you're looking at your notes. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. TV is harder because, you're sitting at the cool desk and like they'll see notepads with you, but try to always have a couple of bullet points. And even like the main for TV, we always think in 3 thoughts. 3 big points. So try to like just have those 3 points and be able to just elaborate on them. But practice honestly is also a big part of it. Like it takes like my first live shots I was in Hagerstown, Maryland, which is really far from DC and also not a big place. My first live shot, horrible. And I'm on live TV doing it. I've also blanked out on live TV where you're like, I have like, the thoughts have gone. Thank God people were not on TikTok and there's no like viral clip of me like, what am I? But it's happened. Just roll with the punches. The biggest thing is obviously not saying something incorrect. So even if you stumble and it doesn't come out perfectly, as long as the facts are correct, that's the biggest thing. I never want someone to like be so nervous they say an incorrect fact. And if you do mess up, always correct it in real time right away. Anyone else? Yes. Oh yeah, sorry, the mic. I remember those. It's like, wait on it.
Hi, I'm Mia McCarthy. I cover Capitol Hill for Politico. I wanted to ask, this is like kind of niche, but I'm curious. So you're talking about the wired headphones and like try to use AirPods. I feel like every live shot I've had, they've said like AirPods sound quality is bad. I don't know if you've heard this. So I'm curious. I feel like I ran into, especially during like the campaign and stuff last year, and even sometimes on the Hill now. Yeah. I run into the issue where I'm like trying to do a live shot quickly, like in a place that's like public, that's like relatively quiet, but or a place like a hotel lobby, like you mentioned. Yeah. What's your? I guess what do you? I know you said behind the ears. Are there any other? Or is it better to just in even those public places to just not to have like I know most of the time I just use my speaker from like my laptop or whatever, and they say not to use headphones or AirPods. Do you think that's okay? And like,
if you're I would say in a quiet place, it's easier to go no headphones because then you can hear, but you don't want, the issue is you don't want to like mishear a question. You're like, what did you say? Right. Because that's the like look on TV is not, in person I can say, well, what did you say? I can lean in, but like on your laptop, you're like, I can't hear. So that's kind of it is niche, but it's one of those things, and some people may not care. Like I said, the headphone thing is kind of on the minor scale of things, especially if you're getting hits consistently. And I think if you add context, like, hey, I'm outside of blah, 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 which is the story, that adds context to why I'm looking or doing something different. Right. So I know, like, so for example, when a lot of TV reporters were covering like the big campaign rallies, people have the headsets on. It's kind of like, I need this so I can hear you, and we don't have to say it because the visuals are clear. But again, if you're doing it kind of like on your phone or on a Zoom, I think adding context, if it helps, like, hey, I'm outside this rally, and so I have, I want to be able to hear you as much as possible.
Right. And do you know for like the wired headphones too, how the mic is like normally, I don't know, the Apple ones are like right here.
Yeah, they're kind of like here.
Does that like make a lot of noise or anything, it being behind your ear or not?
Because I've had to use it for live shots before.
Okay, great.
Yeah, like on TV, where it's just, because as long as the audio is coming from somewhere else.
Great.
Yeah, like if the headphone is solely just for hearing, then you're fine. If
but
you
I'm
do
saying
need
for like the microphone.
Oh yeah, as long as you don't need the microphone part of the headphone.
Gotcha.
So yeah, if they're actually relying on the mic part of the headphone, then yes, you do have to like be conscious of where it is.
Right.
But
I
if they're
think
not,
that was what I've heard in the past is like my AirPods or wired headphones, like sometimes they were like, oh, your sound. Maybe my AirPods are also just old, but
that could be too. Yeah, but no, it's definitely it's a trial and error situation. But I think it's one of those things. Like when the look of it, it's like finding like ways to like eliminate those distractions, but also find stuff that works. So I've seen some people who have like the podcast set up with like the big headphones, and I'm like, hey, that's cool too. That's a whole nother world. So I think it helps that we are getting more casual, but I think sometimes it's like, okay, until you get to that consistency, starting out with like what will definitely work is kind of what I recommend to people. But again, once you start getting booked, it's like, okay, cool. Like you're proving yourself. I want to make sure that you can prove yourself on your content first, and then little things. It's like, oh yeah, that's fine. Like we know she'll deliver on the shot. We don't care what some other stuff is. Because I know last year, some folks talked about, at least for like the men, like I'm sure everyone knows Eugene Daniels, dresses down every single time. He has a very flashy, great wardrobe for a man or a woman, just like great. But I tell people initially, it's for men, I say kind of go simple for the sake of, again, you want to get a chance to get your performance out there. But TV is subjective. Whether you kill it or not on your hit, someone's going to email you. That's the one thing. When you do TV, someone will email you saying, praising your work or hating it. That is just how TV works. Unfortunately, we have keyboard warriors who like to let people know their thoughts. So you're not alone. Take it with a grain of salt. Now, if someone adds some constructive criticism that you're like, all right, this was helpful, definitely take into consideration. If someone's like, I didn't like your hair, girl, go sit down. I didn't like blah, blah, blah. Okay. But people are watching, so that's a good sign too. I think, was there another question? Oh, a few more. Yes, let's go. Up here. Yeah, and then we'll work our way.
Hey, I'm Sibel with USA Today. I cover national security. I'm just curious, like, if you have any tips for kind of staying cool, kind of staying above it if you're in like a combative type of interview situation.
So more like the anchors being
kind of that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That is definitely, that can be tough because that's personalities that you can't control. I would say always stick to, again, the facts, why you're brought on. You talk about national security. Make sure you still remain the national security expert. Because someone can clearly say, oh, that guy was doing a lot. But as long as you stay neutral, you stay, we want people to walk away and say, okay, what's your name again? Sibel. They want to say, well, Sibel did a good job. Like in the midst of all that, she held her own. So it's really like, if you need to, take a deep breath, reset. And that in those situations when it's clearly getting heated on the desk, it's okay to kind of take a deep breath in that moment and wait to respond. Because if you are in a situation like that, and if it is, again, as women, sometimes men will like to over-talk us or out-talk us, take a moment. In those cases, it's okay to like take a breath because it's very clear something else is happening. And even if it's online, like those situations, take a breath because you want people to know that when you were on TV, you kept it cool. Don't engage with that person. Don't allow them to like bait you into something because again, that reflects on you. The host is going to keep their, or maybe not, but like the host is that's a whole nother thing. But for you, definitely control everything that you're doing because you want to get a call back or someone else may book you like, oh, wow, she held her own even with that situation. So it could help you get another booking, but always kind of control your situation. But taking that pause definitely helps. And then up here, yes.
Hi, I'm Lindley. I'm the polling reporter for the Associated Press. I have two questions for you.
Yeah.
One is more big picture. I'm curious how you balance like TV's desire for big personalities with authenticity. I think that's something that I've struggled with a lot, is trying to be true to how I present information while also knowing that the people who talk about polls on TV are so animated and so...
Steve Kornacki. Ta-da! The khaki No, I get
and
you.
that's what people often want. And then, okay, so that's my first question. My second question is, it seems like, so studio step aside, everyone kind of has like a studio in their hand. You know, everyone's doing TikTok, everyone's newsrooms want them to do these selfie videos and all that stuff. So I'm curious if you feel like these tips all apply directly to that, or if there's anything specific to like the phone experience that you would say. I was curious if you have any for people who want like a teleprompter or a place to put their polling notes, for instance. What's a way that you recommend people do that?
So I'll start with your last question first. We'll just start there because that's where my brain is going. So in my TikToks, I actually will joke that like I have notes. Like literally I'll use that as part of my thing because I want to say as authentic. I feel like when you're following a script, that's where you can get robotic and monotone. And I was even guilty of that when I was like in TV. I always told people when I was in the field, gems dropping all the time. But in the studio, something about it would even make me kind of freeze up a little bit. I would still be natural, but if I'm looking at a prompter, I'm trying to hit every word exactly as I'm saying it. And for something like polling, you kind of want to make that more conversational because it can be dense, but it's really important. So I always tell people it's okay to acknowledge you have notes because then as a viewer, I know this reporter is telling me the facts because she's checking them. She's referring to them. She's not just making up numbers. And I think in this era of still some fake news, but like misinformation, like people are just saying anything, I have found it helps to be very authentic of like, I'm checking my notes to make sure you know this information. So I think it's okay to just have a notepad, have some cue cards with your like numbers on it and say like, this is it. Or the great thing about TikTok, you can edit that. If you need to read, you can edit over that part and show a graphic or something. So I think that's the beauty of like TikTok now. We can edit certain things out that maybe show us reading or whatnot. But honestly, in all my videos, I say, I got my notes, let's talk about it. So people know like, look, I'm a millennial. Like I need to read my notes, I need to keep up, and I'll look down and read from them in my TikToks. And I think people like that because it's like, she's getting the facts right. So that's like one way I would answer that question. And yes, I think a lot of those tips do apply to social videos. Now, social videos, very different. You can like hold the camera differently. You can, some of the lights I mentioned, those are good for cell phones because they will stay on. But I know I'm still getting the wing of like social videos myself. Some people like walking ones. They're very casual. So some of the like more professional, like I haven't worn a blazer on my TikToks. So like this is for like in studio, like doing a CNN hit from home. But my TikToks, I'm wearing like t-shirts. Because I feel like that's what I've seen, that people are like, we want you to be casual. Some people are like in their bed doing it. I'm like, that's a bit much. But but that's what's on TikTok. I mean, y'all seen it, that's TikTok, But for the personalities, some people are going to be more, again, everyone loves a Steve. Like, I think now that's like, I know John, John, I cannot think of his last name right now on CNN. Brain is like falling. But, some people will try to like imitate, but like Steve Kornacki is the wall guy with polling. Like, we all know this. Try to like, whatever your niche is, make that yours, because that'll be authentic. Like, I don't think he was trying to become the wall guy in khakis, but he just wore khakis all the time with like a button-up shirt, and now it's the thing. So whatever your thing is, that is what's authentic to you. So again, if it is, hey, doing notes, or hey, here are 3 polls you should know about, or whatever, like find your niche that makes you comfortable, and then that will be authentic for you. So I hope that helps. Yay. Over here.
Hi, I'm Katie Saint with TechSense. I think we actually sat together at the end.
Yeah, definitely. See, small world. It all comes back around.
Absolutely. Before my question, I did want to say to what you were asking, my company, when they do social videos, and I've been doing a couple with them, they're really specific about sticking to the script. So I actually use a teleprompter app that lets you record through the app and it scrolls for you, which is really helpful. So it just might be an option depending on
And that is helpful too. Yes,
yeah.
Definitely. Go by your office.
To be more conversational and relaxed, but they're like, no, you have to have the wording.
Yes, and definitely follow. I should say, office politics are a thing. So if your job is like, we need X, Y, and Z, follow what they say. But as you get better, try to add your personality. But no, there are apps. I again personally haven't used it because I like the for me and my work, it's easier to be just kind of off the cuff, but always with the facts still. But yes.
So I'm a Capitol Hill reporter. I cover taxes specifically, and I've run into
which Godspeed. That's a hard topic to cover.
Yeah,
just print or TV.
Very nice, yeah. And I've run into a couple of issues in terms of the PR people my company has hired to pitch me are not doing a good job of pitching me in the sense that they're often pitching me to other Capitol Hill reporters or other print outlets to be like an expert source, and that's not like how it works for me. And so running into that, I think I'm starting to realize I have to do a lot more pitching for myself.
Yeah.
And you gave some really great tips about reaching out to bookers on LinkedIn, networking, etc. But especially for me, being in like a little bit of a specific beat, I don't think I could pitch myself in the way of like, I can do the news of the day on Capitol Hill because I'm so specific. So do you have tips about like both pitching yourself, because I can't really do that. Like my company's not doing a perfect job of doing that. And then also just like being the person that comes on when there's tax news or like when there's something I can like specifically speak to.
Yeah. Well, first, make sure your job is cool with you pitching yourself. Like just get, and that's, I should say out the gate, make sure your job is cool with you pitching yourself in general. We don't want anyone to get fired. There are too many layoffs happening. Okay. So as long as they're cool with you going out on your own, make an elevator pitch. And in your elevator pitch in your email, quickly like, hey, I can break down these 3 tax things easily. And make sure you can do it confidently, practice that and kind of say, hey, I want to be your tax expert. Obviously, honestly, this is a great time. We're about to go shut down again. We love a shutdown story. How do you make the shutdown story in taxes more relatable? Like for me, if you're pitching yourself as an expert, what makes you different? Sell that to a booker because they're trying to craft a show based on different voices. They have their usuals, but why should they make you a new usual person? So definitely pitch how you're the expert and pitch often. So I actually talked to a former CNN booker yesterday before this presentation, and she was like, some people had to reach out to her 3 times before they got a response. So it's okay. If you get no response, it's not a no, but eventually she was like, wait, I've seen this email before. So it comes. And if you can, again, this is where you have to talk with your office. If you have an exclusive or a different, element that you can then present like, hey, I have this really cool tax exclusive. I'm willing to share it with you only. It drops on our website at 12. I can come on at 8. That's another way to kind of get yourself in the door because it's like, oh, we have an exclusive. This is adding to our show. How can you benefit the show as well? But that's one of those you got to coordinate with your pitching folks, make sure they're cool with it. But if you can give them something new, that also helps you. But I think, honestly, pitching yourself is how do you make taxes make sense? That's helpful because, like I said, when you mentioned you cover taxes, I'm like, that's dense, regardless of how you do it. So pitching yourself in that way is helpful. And I would even pitch yourself to local news first even, because a lot of local stations are covering more news because what's happening, it's a different, DC local is now interacting with federal so much more than we ever did. So pitching yourself to the local news stations, pitching yourself to the local PBS station, those are ways to get out there. And then as you try to pitch to the bigger networks, you can say, hey, here are my clips doing just that. Because sometimes that's what it is too. You need clips to kind of do an audition. I know you kind of talked about that. You put in previous clips. Some people need a audition to say, oh, all right, I will give her a shot. And always say yes. I think I mentioned this. Say yes to every hit, no matter how early it is. I know. Say yes, if you can. Obviously, the job comes first. But if they're like, we need you here at 3 a.m., guess where you're going to be? There at 3 a.m., all right? Because that is just, they want people who say yes. If they can depend on you to say yes for 3 a.m. or 11 p.m., that stands out too. Everyone wants to be on at 6 p.m., duh. But again, if you say yes to the odd times, to the last minute times, if someone texts you at noon saying, hey, can you be here at 4 a.m. the next morning, they remember that. So as you start booking, try to build those relationships with the producers and see how that goes as well. I think we have one more over here or next to you. There we go.
Hi, Shawneen Miranda with States Newsroom, and I focus on education policy. I'm curious what advice you would give to your younger self, both as a reporter in general and then also when reporting on TV.
Ooh, reflective. All right now, TED Talk. That's a good one. I think being more authentic earlier. Because again, at least when I was in journalism school, 2007, 2011, there was very much this the news voice, the newswoman, the newsman kind of vibe. And even my local, I would watch the local news as a kid. They gave that, just, yes, that voice. But I think leaning into just being authentically who I am. So again, there are some quirks, I'm a little corny at times, leaning into that when you can, obviously if you're covering a hard news story, be serious. And then showing empathy as much as possible. You know, that to me is a skill that took time. Showing empathy in your reporting, in your live coverage, you know, even showing some emotion. I think that's the one thing in TV, it was like, show no emotion, you know, some, but like, we are just objective observers. But I think now it's like, if something really is like, just you're seeing a scene that is just can't believe it. Like, again, think about education. We had another school shooting last week, you know, talking about, you know, I think even exerting like, we're just seeing this raw emotion. Like, if you just kind of even sigh, you know, I think letting people know like, we're human too. I think that's something I wish I'd done earlier in my career. I got there, but I think it's one of those things, even now I'm still improving, but I think reminding people we're humans too. Like, this is tough stuff that we cover. You know, it's intense, or we're watching the fights or whatever, but like, again, thinking about education, that's a tough beat when we're talking about another elementary school, another high school, another this. It's okay to kind of say like, we're here again. This is it, you know? And I've even seen some network anchors, actually Craig Melvin is a great one. Whenever he's like called to like a school shooting, I feel like he, or just any kind of tragedy, he brings emotion in a way that to me is still professional, but really authentic. So that is something to like to consider as well. But yeah, that would be being more authentic early on. So I think, again, when I was in J school, it was like, here's the mold, here's the runway you're following. So yeah, so now that's why we have Here's to Do with KG. I'm KG on my little TikTok, so subtle plug, subscribe, you know, all around. Anyone else? I think we had a couple. Oh, let's get one up front and then, yeah. We'll go to the front first and then go back. It was Mia? It was a Mia, right? Okay, I'll make sure we get everyone. Yeah, definitely. I'm here to help, you know, exactly.
Hi, Karina with Spectrum News. Just curious, because I work in local TV. If you're, you know, pitching yourself for bigger networks, do they typically pay for hits, and is it something that they will say? Will the booker say that?
As far as I know, most times it is free. You are volunteering the goodness out of your heart and for the sake of wanting to be on TV. But those who have done it, you're shaking your head. And again, this is where I have not been in that world directly because I was like you in local news. And actually my old company, we couldn't even pitch ourselves. So we had to we can only be on our local stations. I would say go in knowing it's not paid. But if you do want to go down a contributor path, I know those contracts are strict where you can only be a contributor for CNN or only for MS Now or whatever they're going to call themselves, you know. So, you know, no shade, just, you know, we don't know their name now. But take into consideration that if you do get a contract with someone, it's another contract, you know, TV contracts. So it limits where you can do your hits. Now, so I say that's one of those things you kind of like, it's a gift and a curse. Like, yes, it's free. Yes, it's early hours, but it's exposure. And knowing we're all trying to move on to the next thing, that could just help you move on to the next job, and it brings you a new skill for your resume and whatnot. But I think the biggest thing is expecting that this won't be a paid. This is definitely for exposure. At least that's how I tell people. This is an exposure thing. It's great for your resume. If you wanted to work for that network, that helps too, because it's like, hey, I've done 20 hits for CNN. They might be like, oh yeah, we do like, you know, that person. So, but yeah, I would go in assuming it's not paid. And I'm thinking everyone has the same experience. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yes. Which yes, no, because you said you were a producer, so.
I would just say one thing if anyone does get a contract with like a CNN or an MS Now or CBS or whatever, to make sure that you have a public media carve out in your contract, because generally speaking, everyone will give you a public media carve out for NPR, PBS, and that means you can still do those. So.
See?
Yeah, just
dropping gems. All right, thank you. Yes. No, because that's good to know. I think that's one of those things, contracts, being in TV most of my career, we've always had strict contracts. So that's why I said I've never been able to do these kind of hits, at least in DC, because I was told I couldn't. In Charlotte, I could. I was a government reporter there, so I was on the PBS and NPR stations there all the time because I was actually with Spectrum. It was then something else, but they were fine with that. So every shop has their own policy. So that's why I always say, check with your job. I don't want anyone getting fired, trying to be on TV. Like, that is not the message here. And I think we had up here, anyone else? Yes.
I'm Nicholas Anastasio. I cover Senate campaigns for National Journal and Hotline. I'm sort of interested in like being more multidisciplinary. Like we do podcasts every now and again. I gotten radio hits every now and again. We mostly write for our website and for our newsletters, but I am sort of interested at some point parlaying into like being more multidisciplinary where I'm like writing digital or also like being on television. But I don't necessarily want to go back. Like, I don't want to go to grad school for journalism. How's the
Yeah.
best way to transition from, let's say, strictly writing online, strictly writing print, to then maybe being more multidisciplinary?
Yeah, honestly, doing the thing. So getting out the cell phone and saying, hey, like, do you guys have a TikTok?
No, but I wish we did.
So maybe a starting one. So maybe, talk to your digital team, but you get the best experience from practice. Kind of like to your question, like how often does it, you just got to do practice. Live hits, practice, practice, practice. So like the more you do it, the more you get better at it. And you're starting to get kind of the recipe down, because the first time you do anything, so if the first time you try to edit a video, it's going to take you a while. So you have to kind of do it to get that experience. I would say try to lean on the folks in this room. Obviously, you have like Spectrum News here. There might be some other TV. Try to figure out what systems you guys need to get so you can like learn how to edit. But I would say it's really just getting in there and trying it, because I agree. I don't think you need to go back to grad school. And I wouldn't have recommended that anyway, because listen, student debt is too real. And in this business, unfortunately, we're not always paid for like extra education. So it's like, don't take on student debt just to do it. So, but it's really just like using the materials, and like TikTok, I don't ever think teaching that at grad school. And I'm only pushing that because that's where I've seen people are using TikTok, YouTube shorts. That's where video is going. And so I would say trying to learn that stuff now is really, really helpful. And it's just trial and error. So it's trying to figure out, okay, what digital story can we turn into a video? Do we have access to Getty images? Do we have access to something else? Because video, we call it B-roll, but basically it's just footage to cover up or to kind of add a visual to whatever story you have. So I would say talk with your digital team and see, maybe it's a YouTube Shorts series you guys start. But that's where I would say you become multi-platform, is just trying these different platforms. Well, those are the two things I would try. And it's also free, so it's an easy, it's very low cost for your job, because we're talking about YouTube, TikTok, Instagram Reels, maybe. Instagram is now limiting how their algorithm is really weird, but TikTok and YouTube Shorts, I feel like, are now really kind of driving the conversation online for video. So I would start with that. So I hope that answered your question a little bit. Okay. But yeah, it's just trial and error. My first TikTok video, I was like, I am going to make a masterpiece. And it was like, why did it take 2 hours? Now I'm like, okay, 30 minutes. But it just takes time. I've only been doing it for 2 months. You can see in a gap in my thing where it's like, I was on TikTok during the campaign. I stopped. I was like, I don't really care about this app. And then when I launched my Substack, I was like, okay, let's get back. So yeah, and then consistency. That's what I've noticed too. If you put out something, like if your job lets you kind of start the TikTok or the YouTube Shorts, be consistent. So talk about how you guys can build out maybe a few weeks of content. So once a week, you guys are posting too. Because then that will get you into a rhythm that meets the need online, which is people want something once a week. If you post once a month, it's like, where was that guy with the National Journal? How can you be consistent if you do take on a multimedia role? So yeah. Anyone else? We used to have a studio. Oh, go ahead and back. There used to be a studio where we would actually have y'all go into the studio, but the studio isn't here. But you guys have had some good questions, so I won't have you guys interview each other today. But just know that was on the list. You got spared.
I have a question about the pitching yourself to bookers.
Yes.
Maybe this was naive of me. I didn't know that you were allowed to do that.
Yeah. But no, it's fair. You're like, I don't.
Well,
New world.
And again, like Politico, we have a booker, and she just text me and be like, "Can you do this tomorrow?" And I'll say yes. That's kind of. I thought that was the only way. So could you just walk me through I know you said on LinkedIn and emailing.
Mm-hmm.
What does that email kind of look like?
Well, remind me of your name again. Skylar. Actually, walk me through what your email looks like, and I'll tell you what I would do.
Well, I mean, some people I wouldn't even reach out. I just add them on LinkedIn. Oh, great.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, microphone. Just kidding. I know I'm adding.
I just send a LinkedIn what is it, request to kind of be friends or whatever, and then sometimes I'd message them, but then I kind of would think if I'm becoming a connection, then they're probably seeing who I am just by my title. But I would just be like, hey, I'm Skylar, White House reporter at Bloomberg. Would love to be considered to join a show that you're working with, and here's my recent it's in my byline link, my Bloomberg thing, and then a previous clip that I have, very short. Yeah.
I would definitely say keep it short, because based on the feedback I've gotten from booking producers, there's so much happening that you all don't see. because they're talking to producers, they're doing this, they're trying to figure out the show, there's probably breaking news. So they need something quick where it's like, okay, Mia can talk about taxes, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Like think about you're writing to someone who's very, very busy. Also, I would suggest pitching to booking the bookers, not producers.
Yeah, so like
very different. Yeah. Because the producer is trying to build a show and they are not, you are one small thing and they are not concerned. But the bookers, their sole purpose is to book guests. I would definitely go that route. And I think you have something to add too. We'll go Skylar and then.
Just because like we have to get every external thing approved. So like on the off chance that they would, be like, oh, we'd love for you to join, then I would immediately then connect with our newsroom person to be like,
yeah. The biggest thing I will say is like communication. So I'm always big on over communicate what you're doing with your bosses or whoever's in charge so that no one's like, how did Mia end up on CNN? It's like, yo, like we cleared this. So just like, because again, the biggest thing is making sure they know you're actively doing it. So if it's new, just everyone's aware, even giving them, depends on your relationship, but like, hey, I'm reaching out to these shows. So if they are pitching you, you're not double pitching. Like you want to make sure you're not duplicating work. So, for your case, I think because it sounds like they are pitching you to some degree, make sure you say, hey, I'm pitching myself for, way too early tomorrow. Do that so they know, okay, we don't have to pitch Mia because she's doing it kind of thing. And then I know in the back you had a comment.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with everything that Skylar said. But also one thing that I found was really useful was when reporters would pitch themselves or flag that they're around during holiday season. You have a lot of people and a lot of correspondents who are a lot more senior who no longer have to work Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Absolutely.
And there's a show that needs to be filled. And there's also just moments where we know that you're reliable to do that. So, 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I'm around for Thanksgiving and I'm covering from Monday to the Sunday. So you can bug me if you need. And summer months as well. Generally, you have my executive producer would always whine to me that there would be weeks on end where all of our correspondents were on holiday and we needed someone to fill in.
Yep.
So if you have a congressional reporter that needs to step in, that's always helpful.
No, that's a great one. And weekends. I know we love our weekends, but if you can always pitch, the weekend shows, that's still TV, So I always say yes if you can to a weekend show. Even maybe add that to your rotation first. It's like, because like anything else, the weekends have less eyes. So that's a great place to like get your start. And it's not going to be like, oh my God, I messed up. It's like, no, someone's grandma was watching. It's all good. Like it's totally fine. But that's a great tip, especially with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up. If you are based here in DC, totally let people know because producers are, and forgive me if I'm like overstepping, but I know you're planning far in advance, especially with holidays, because even as a reporter, the news never stops. So in local news, we had to plan, what am I covering on Christmas Day when, I can't cover the parade or something. So that's definitely a great addition to add. But anything else? I think lunch is probably here. Anything, guys? Yay.
Like
you guys have been great.
Yeah.